Hi everybody, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be showing you how I installed the EPDM rubber roof on my DIY garden room. And this is the first time I've ever done this, and it wasn't really that difficult, so I genuinely believe anybody watching this could do the job themselves as well. It's not very complicated at all. As you can see, at the minute I'm just on the roof and I'm actually rolling the rubber back, which has been laid up on the top of the OSB for a couple of hours now. And the reason for this is you're meant to leave it to kind of settle in the sun and all the creases will drop out of it and things like that. So yeah, it's just been lying there for a couple of hours while I was getting other things ready. And right now I'm getting ready to glue the roof down, so I'm just rolling it back to the middle from one side. So basically it's just a case of, trying to roll it as even as you can and just bring it back to the middle. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to glue one side, then we're going to roll that back in sections as we glue it, and then we'll basically do the other side straight after that. So the roof, as you can see, you probably can tell actually here, I've done a little bit of sanding on the roof. So I just sanded it just to get any little burrs and splinters and things like that off with an orbital sander. I didn't bother filming that because I didn't think it'd make very interesting viewing, but yeah, 10 minutes just running the orbital over it just to kind of make sure the surface is nice and smooth. And what I'm doing here is I'm just opening up the special roof adhesive that's designed for this job. So it kind of looks a little bit like PVA, but it's really sticky stuff. Once this stuff goes off, it really sticks solid. I mean, I stood in it a few times and I was literally sticking to the OSB. So yeah, be careful. Try not to get it on the top side of the rubber because it will be difficult to get off. But yeah, basically what you can see here is I've just put it into like a paint tray, and I'm just using an extendable roller here so I can do it stood up. And then just to protect the roof here, I've got a couple of pieces of fascia board which I'm just going to put kind of end to end, and then I'm just going to put the adhesive on there just so it doesn't leak onto the roof in anywhere. And then it's just a case of rolling the adhesive onto the USB, ready to roll the rubber onto it. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm just going to do like 2 rollers width, so basically just a little channel, and then roll the rubber roof onto that, and then kind of carry on in that fashion. If I was to try and do the whole half of this roof, it would be just drying much too fast, especially with the weather on this day. It was particularly hot, so the glue was going off really quickly, so there was no time that I could really waste, just waiting around to do the entire side of the roof. So I just did it in sections. This is also a way that I've seen several other people do it, so you can actually see over to the right hand side here, look, you can see it's starting to go translucent. The adhesive's actually going off here, so once I've got to this side here, I'll go back over and just give that another once over just to make sure that we're actually going to be sticking down to it. Okay, so once you've done that, you can move to the other side and just roll the rubber on. And then once you've got it up to the edge of the glue, just brush any air bubbles out and then move on to the next section. Okay, so I'll speed through this bit. You can basically see what I'm doing. I'm just doing it in little rows there and then rolling it out and then brushing it. Now obviously when you get right to the edge here, be very careful. You're right on the edge of the roof, so there is a serious risk of falling off here if you're not careful. So just make sure that you're aware of where you are and be safe. Okay, so we've done the first side, so it's a case of just moving everything over onto the side that we just completed, and it's just a case of rolling this side back and basically just repeating the process on this side. So we're going to roll it back all the way until we hit the glue in the middle, and you'll feel it pull back. Try and just pull it back a little bit just to expose a little bit of that glue, and then you've got a continuous section of adhesive running all the way across the OSB. And it's just the exact same process, just rolling the rubber onto the adhesive and then brushing it with the brush. And then once I was finished here, I also went along and just double checked everything, give it a little brush over, made sure all the bubbles were out. And then we can move on to trimming the roof and adding the actual finishing touches to it, adding the trims onto the edge. So if you watch the fascia and soffit video, the previous video, you'll know that on the back I had already put the first part of the gutter trim on, and this was prior to the rubber going on. So underneath the rubber here, you can just about see some slate lap, and that's nailed straight to the fascia, and then on top of the slate lap there is the first part of the gutter trim. So the bit that I'm actually handling now is the second part, and that is fixing into the other piece and kind of sandwiching the rubber. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm pulling the rubber down, and then I'm putting a nail through that into the first part of gutter trim, and basically just working along the length of this second part of gutter trim just to kind of sandwich that rubber and make a nice even edge there for the roof for the water to run off into the gutter. So this is just a case of once you've got the first nail in, the holes were all pre-drilled into this, so it's quite simple. You just nail straight through all the way to the end. You can see I had a little cut here to do on the end just to finish it off. And then it's just a case of cutting the rubber off. Just make sure you've got a sharp Stanley blade, and you can just cut this nice and tight with the bottom of this gutter trim. So try and get this as neat as possible. Obviously just do your best to get it really nice and tight up to the bottom. But what I will say is this will be hidden by the gutter, so it's, you know, if you don't get it 100% perfect, you know, you don't have to kind of beat yourself up about it. It's not the end of the world, but, you know, just do your best to try and get it nice and tight to the bottom. It's just going to look neater. Okay, so just work your way along, cut it off. And then once that's done, you can just drop it down. And that is the rubber cut off the back. We'll just need to just trim it off at the end here as well. Once that's done, we can move on to the sides. Okay, so the sides are slightly different here. We're not putting any trim on before we cut the rubber. Now, the rubber is stuck down really well here, so we can be quite confident that it's not going to blow away while we're cutting it. Nothing's going to move. And basically what you want to do is just trim it off. So there's about a 50mm overhang remaining. You can measure this if you want, or try and make something to, like a tool, to make it really even, but I just kind of guesstimated it. I kind of eyed it in at 50mm and just cut it off. We just need enough left overhanging so that the curb trims have got a bit of rubber to kind of grab hold of, to pull it over the edge to create that waterproof seal. So once you've done the side, we're just going to work along the front and do the other side, and then we can actually get our curb trims and start to install them. And just like the gutter trim, these have got holes pre-drilled into them for the nails. So we just take the film off, and we can just start applying that to the side. And basically what we want to do is we want to just push this over the edge and have it pull the rubber roof tight over the corner. So you can see the way I pushed it over there, and then just apply some weight, and there's a seal on the inside edge which we just want to compress down into the rubber roof. Once that's done, just apply some weight, as I'm doing here with my hand that's holding the nail, and you can just nail straight into the fascia, and that's going to, again, it's going to kind of sandwich that rubber, and the seal on the inside is going to make it completely watertight, so no water can run off the edges. And just repeat this process basically all the way along. So you just want to go along, and with each nail you want to make sure you're pushing it down and getting it nice and tight down so that no water could escape off the edges. And basically what this is going to do, it's going to mean that all the water is basically channeled down the slope of the flat roof here. So all water just basically runs off the back into the gutter. So as you can see, I'm just pushing down. Every nail that I put in, I'm just applying weight with my hand that I'm holding the nail. And that's enough to just compress that seal and just give us that nice tight, watertight edge. Okay. Okay, so once that's done, you can see that I've got a joint here, so I do have to add a smaller piece on the edge. And whenever there's any joints like this, you should leave a little gap. Don't butt them up tight, because what you'll find is as the weather changes, when it gets warmer and colder, you're going to get that expansion, contraction. So you want to make sure there's a little bit of a gap for movement. The same on the front here. And what I did on the front is I made directly in the middle, so that the little joining strip that clips over is central, just above the door there. And then once that's on, we can start putting the corner covers on, which is very simple. These just slot over, and we can just put a pin in the front or in the side. I only bothered putting one in these, and that was plenty to just hold it in place. And then the little pieces of trim that go over the joints, these just basically clip over. They kind of clip and lock over. So you just need to apply a little bit of pressure, and then they will just hold in place. They don't need fixing. So basically there was one on either side, one on the front, and there was also a joint on the gutter trim as well, which had a slightly different cover that you put on. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward really, nothing overly complicated up to this point. And yeah, once you've done that, you are basically done. So here we are. This is the finished product. My first ever rubber roof, so I'm quite happy with it. I think that the trims there look really nice with the fascia and the soffit. They're obviously the same colour, the same anthracite grey, so it kind of blends in really nicely. And it gives a really nice professional look, I think. So here we are up on the roof. As you can see, it's looking pretty good. And if we just look at the middle here, you can actually see the little joints there that I've put on the little covers that I put on the joints, the corner cover here as well. So this just tidies it up, makes it look a little bit nicer. And then you've got the same cover on the back here, and you'll notice it's got a little cap on it. So these pop out, and just where the gutter trim is here, obviously we didn't want to pop that out. It just kind of keeps it solid. We've got the jointing strip there on the gutter trim. That looks nice. And yeah, it just kind of tidies it all up. And the roof itself's looking pretty decent, I think. There's no bubbles in it. It's nice and flat, nice and smooth. And yeah, I've got to say, guys, I'm really happy with it. I hope you enjoyed watching me do it, and I will see you in the next video. By the way, if you did like it, don't forget to subscribe, like the video. I'll see you in the next one.